The night was supposed to be quiet. My dog, Bella, had just curled up by the fence line, her tail wagging softly as she watched the breeze rustle through the grass. She was part German Shepherd, part Lab, and all loyalty, gentle enough to let kids climb over her back, but sharp enough to sense when danger prowled too close. In my world, Bella wasn't just a dog. She was blood, bone, and family. But in the twisted minds of my HOA, she was a dangerous animal. I had heard the whispers at board meetings, the sneering comments about certain breeds being too aggressive, the way Karen, self-appointed queen of the cul-de-sac, spun tales about Bella terrorizing neighbors, even though my dog had never so much as barked at their poodles. It was control they craved, not safety, and that night they took it too far. I was inside, lights dimmed, when I heard the crunch of gravel and low voices cutting through the darkness. At first I thought it was some teenagers messing around, but then came the metallic click, the sound that freezes the blood of anyone who's ever trained in combat, the unmistakable slide of a handgun being chambered. I crept toward the window, heart pounding, and saw them. 3 men in dark jackets, HOA badges on their sleeves like some parody of authority. Their leader, a broad-shouldered man with a cruel smirk, raised his pistol at Bella. HOA rules say no dangerous animals, he sneered, his voice cold and casual, as if he were discussing trash bins or lawn heights. Bella's ears perked. She didn't lunge, she didn't growl, she simply stood there, tail still wagging, trusting the world she didn't understand. And that was when my blood turned to fire. I opened the porch door slowly, every movement deliberate. My hand brushed the edge of my jacket where the weight of steel rested snug against my ribs. My training had taught me patience, taught me never to draw unless I intended to end things. And tonight, I intended to end something. "That's not a dangerous animal," my voice cut across the yard, low and steady. They turned, their sneers widening when they saw me. "That's my family." One of them chuckled, a guttural sound dripping with arrogance. "Family, huh? HOA rules don't care about feelings." They laughed. Their guns didn't waver, but neither did mine. I let my jacket fall open, slow as dawn, and the porch light caught the metal at my hip. The holster glinted, polished from years of use. Their laughter faltered, my eyes locked on theirs, unblinking, unshaken. "I'm licensed, trained, and faster than you'll ever be. Put the guns down." The yard went silent, save for Bella's soft panting. The thugs froze, uncertainty creeping into their swagger. They hadn't expected resistance. They thought they could scare me into submission, maybe shoot my dog and walk away with a smirk. But they hadn't counted on who I was, or what I was capable of. For years I had kept my training quiet, combat tours overseas, certifications stacked higher than their HOA resume pile. They thought they were predators, but they were prey standing in my yard. Seconds stretched into lifetimes. The leader's hand trembled, ever so slightly. He tried to mask it with a smirk, but fear had a way of betraying even the toughest mask. Then from the distance, the faint whoop of sirens split the night. Blue and red light flickered against the houses at the end of the street. Real law enforcement, not the cosplay kings of the HOA. The thugs stiffened. I didn't lower my hand. Not yet. "This is where your power trip ends," I whispered. Bella barked once, sharp and defiant, as the squad car pulled up. Doors slammed, boots hit pavement, and in less than a minute the night turned upside down. "Drop the weapons!" The officer's voice was thunder, commanding and absolute. For the first time that night, the HOA thugs obeyed. Their guns clattered against the concrete, arrogance dissolving into panic. And as the cuffs clicked shut around their wrists, I felt no relief, just a cold, simmering rage. Because tonight wasn't about a dog. It was about power, about control,
about people who thought they could bend the world to their will at the cost of others' lives. This wasn't the end, not even close. As Bella pressed against my leg, trembling but safe, I looked at the flashing lights and the men who thought they could break me. I swore silently, right then and there, that I would burn the HOA's empire of arrogance to the ground. And I don't make promises I can't keep. The HOA thugs didn't go quietly. Even as the officers slammed their car doors and dragged them toward the flashing lights, they spat excuses. "You don't understand. We were enforcing HOA rules," the leader barked, cracking. "Yeah," another chimed in, face pale. "That mutt's dangerous. We were protecting the neighborhood." But the officers weren't buying it. Guns on private property, aiming at a family pet, that wasn't enforcement. That was assault with a deadly weapon. And it was all on my security cameras, humming quietly in the background, capturing every word, every threat, and every twitch of their trigger fingers.
As the last thug disappeared into the squad car, Bella leaned against my leg. I crouched and scratched behind her ears, whispering a promise. "They'll never touch you again." But inside, my anger wasn't soothed, it was sharpened. The HOA wasn't just 3 men. It was an entire board, propped up by rules they bent at will, drunk on power and backed by neighbors too scared or too blind to resist. Tonight had been a warning shot. If they were willing to send armed thugs after a dog, what would they do next? I knew one thing: I wasn't waiting around to find out. The next morning, the neighborhood was buzzing. Karen, the HOA president, strutted up and down the street, painting herself as the victim. "Those poor men," she wailed to anyone who'd listen. "They were only doing their job, and that lunatic pulled a gun on them. We have to protect our community from people like him." I watched from my porch, sipping coffee, my holster still strapped to my side. Her voice carried, shrill and grating, but I wasn't rushing to defend myself. Let her spin her lies. The truth had already been captured on video, and soon enough the world would see it. I uploaded the footage to 3 places that morning: the police evidence portal, my lawyer's secure server, and most dangerously for Karen and her empire of control, the press. By evening, the headline blazed across local news. HOA members arrested after aiming guns on family dog. The footage played on loop. The sneering faces, the raised pistols, the line, "HOA rules say no dangerous animals," broadcast into every living room. The comments section was a tidal wave of fury. "Who does this? Arrest them all. I'd move out of that neighborhood yesterday." Karen's empire cracked overnight. But I wasn't finished. While the HOA scrambled to spin their story, I dug deeper. My lawyer helped me file a restraining order against the board members who had sent the thugs. Then we pulled their records, financial, operational, anything tied to HOA funds. And what we found made my blood boil hotter than ever. Embezzlement, kickbacks, fines collected from residents funneled into maintenance projects that didn't exist, thousands of dollars siphoned off into personal accounts, and Karen's signature was everywhere. It wasn't about rules, it was about greed, always had been. My dog was just a pawn in their game of power and profit. I could have stopped there, let the police handle it, let the courts chew on the evidence. But I lived under their tyranny long enough to know how slippery they were. Karen had a way of wriggling free, twisting words, painting herself as the hero. So I set a trap. At the next HOA meeting, moved to the community center since the clubhouse was under renovation, translation, Karen didn't want reporters camped outside. I walked in with Bella at my side. Gasps echoed as she padded beside me, calm, leash loose in my hand. Karen's face went red. "You can't bring that animal in here," she snapped. I smiled coldly. Dangerous animals or family? Before she could answer, I slid a laptop on the table and pressed play. The projector lit up the wall with the footage of her thugs. The room fell silent as neighbors watched, horror dawning on their faces. Every smirk, every sneer, every threat. They couldn't deny it anymore. And then I pulled out the second file. Spreadsheets,
bank transfers, documents signed by Karen herself. The embezzlement laid bare. "This," I said, voice steady as the storm in my chest, "is your HOA. Guns on pets, lies to your neighbors, money stolen from your pockets. You voted for this, but tonight you end it." Karen sputtered, tried to shout me down, but the crowd was no longer hers. Neighbors who had been silent for years found their voices. "You fined me $500 for painting my door. You stole from us. We want you out." The room erupted. Not chaos, revolution. Police walked in minutes later, tipped off by my lawyer. They went straight to Karen. The clink of cuffs was the sweetest sound I had ever heard. As they led her away, she spat venom at me. "This isn't over. You'll regret this." I met her glare with calm fire. "No, Karen, this is the end. For you." Bella leaned against me again, tail thumping softly. The HOA collapsed within weeks. With its leaders arrested and funds frozen, the board dissolved, leaving the neighborhood free for the first time in years. Neighbors began to rebuild, not just their homes, but their trust. And every time Bella trotted down the street, people waved, children ran to pet her, and no one ever called her dangerous again. As for me, I slept with both eyes closed for the first time in months. Not because I had won, but because I had proven a truth Karen and her thugs had forgotten. Some families don't break under threats. They fight back. And when they do, no HOA in the world can stop them.